Today we're gonna talk about Sofia Coppola's films. We came across something curious when watching her film On the Rocks. The way adults deal with serious situations by reacting in a childish manner. In filmmaking, how can a director make a character more complex or show some three-dimensionality beneath what we merely see? In some comedies, each director has its own way of doing so. Woody Allen's strategy relapses in the dialogues and in the contradiction between what the characters say and what they actually do.
Photography is interesting because, it's a new art form and a set of aesthetic criteria have not emerged yet.
In the so-called New American comedy, characters tend to hide some secrets behind their grotesque language.
When you grab a woman's breast and you feel it and it feels like a bag of sand when you're touching it.
Whereas in Harold Ramis's Groundhog Day, Phil finally finds freedom in a world which ironically locks him in. Now, what is Sofia Coppola's strategy? The use of games, roleplay, fantasy. The importance of the ludic in On the Rocks, and also in Lost in Translation, is crucial. This kind of behavior from the characters creates a dream environment, which contrasts directly with the serious situations in where they are involved. Let's take a look at some examples and talk about how they depict the character's personality.
And remember, don't give your heart to any boys. You're mine until you get married. Then you're still mine.
That's how the film begins. Bill Murray's voice, which itself contains a comedic tone, contrasting with the imminent reality of the wedding of Laura, his daughter. Even so, Laura spends her wedding night in a silly manner. She screams like a child who dips into the water while playing with her friends, despite being a grown woman in a wedding dress. We could say that both characters, even in their most serious situations, always have a childish response. Another example of this theme takes place a few minutes after that, while Laura tries to start writing a book she has already been paid to do. Her adult climate collides with the silly atmosphere of Felix, who talks joyfully in French and jokes around with a woman. Let's look closely at Lost in Translation for a minute. Here, everything is, in a sort of way, backwards. Japan works as a scenery for their respective crises. They are unable to find themselves, as they don't understand the language nor that culture. Now, when we say crisis, we say it in the purest sense of the word. A moment in which our lives can't remain the same. We could say that both Bob and Charlotte, as well as Felix and Laura, are going through a crisis. The response consists of escaping by constantly playing games and perform roleplays. That's why we see Charlotte and Bob singing a karaoke. Music, and particularly singing, which are very recurrent in Coppola's films, gives us a sense of a dreamy climate. In On the Rocks, there are several musical moments. First, we see this.
None of us go round and round, all over town.
Then,
A laugh, moose dough, that floats on a summer night that you can never quite.
and finally,
Kiss me once again and hold me. Mexicali road.
these musical scenes show the previously commented dichotomy of how the characters face situations by role-playing. Adults become children, a womanizer becomes Sinatra, and New York becomes Mexico. Music makes everything change. The way Felix deals with the possible affair of his son-in-law is somewhat curious. We talked about his previous roleplays, as he performed a French-speaking womanizer, a jazz singer,
Laura is the face in the misty night. Footsteps.
and the ballet expert.
Ballet dancer.
Yes.
Now, he will play a detective towards this affair. We see him arriving in an eccentric convertible car while eating caviar. He has a notepad, has an informant in London, he gets photos in an envelope, and he even follows him with a tracker. Again, this sort of fake and childish attitude of Felix towards a serious matter depicts itself as fanciful. Other times, Felix performs a soldier at war, as he dresses with a bunch of gadgets, binoculars, and lanterns. He also jumps a wall soldier style. It's not a coincidence that in Lost in Translation we see Bob putting on a war-themed shirt, of course backwards, like the world in which they are living, as we mentioned before. In the introduction, we talked about how both characters have childish responses to adult matters. That's why we also see Laura following his father's silliness and various delusions. She gets disappointed by not getting a birthday cake like a child. When she finally receives her desired gift, Dean and Laura reunite, as they both resign something of their nature. Laura leaves her childish attitude for a moment, and Dean leaves his dedication for his company to play a little game, hiding the real present under the previous birthday gift. This change resolves the crisis, with Laura finally replacing his father's watch for the new one Dean gives to her. Symbolically, she leaves her father's games and roleplays for the seriousness that marriage carries. Finally, these games aren't completely meaningless, as they also enable them to surpass each other's crises, both in Lost in Translation and in On the Rocks. Laura has passed this state of dreaminess and immaturity to finally get to the adult world that her father never got to. She finally gets to whistle, ability she could never learn until now. Despite passing time in a fake world with him, she took what she needed to go one step further and commit to her life. And of course, this sort of adventure that the movie was, translates into the novel she couldn't write at first. Well, that's it for now, and see you next week on See Cinema.
If you like the video, please comment, like and subscribe.